Hey, what's up, guys? It's MugenLord here, and today we're going to talk about Stellar Blade, because that's right, it appeared back in the media once again, because apparently there's some journal outlets out there who don't appreciate the fact is that you're showing appreciation to the female protagonist, Eve herself, because of her design, and in fact, they find you really creepy of how you're going about it. So before we step into this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button and notification bell for more gaming content here on this channel. Like, Stellar Blade has been pretty much stirring up so much controversy ever since the game was officially announced, all the way up to we had the state of play that actually shows off the game itself, and people gave their opinions about it. And at one point, people were pretty surprised that Kotaku themselves had pretty much gave a compliment to Eve and the various different outfits that the character has. And a lot of people said, well, you know, sometimes a broken clock can be right twice out of the day. But the thing was, people thought that, hey, maybe, just maybe, things could possibly turn when it comes to gaming journalism. But then, once again, you're not surprised, because, of course, we have a pretty much a website, of course, that goes by the Mary Sue. You know, they had to give their opinion about it. So it says, Stellar Blade's design isn't the problem. It's how creepy men are being about it. Now, that's the thing about the gaming community and game journalists in general. For over a decade now, for the past decade, gamers have been getting hit with slander on top of slander on top of slander, especially the male demographics, the male gamers in general, for having a specific preference and what they like in their video games and what they like in their female characters. And the thing is, we're not saying, and especially a lot of male gamers are not saying that, hey, you know, we don't want, you know, these type of women in general. That's the opposite of what we see with Eve and many other female characters. But now you're pretty much just removing them all together and just giving us, you're replacing one and putting it with another, and you telling us that we should like it and get along with it. And this is the problem. And then they get mad when gamers fight back, and then they want to run back to the media and cry victim when they was the ones punching down at us to begin with. So let us continue. A new action adventure game, which is not, it's an action RPG. Stellar Blade is on its way to release for PlayStation 5. However, the controversy over the game has arisen due to men being creepy about the lead character, Eve. Of course, we're going back to more shaming tactics. They're very good at this. Of course, men being creepy about female characters is nothing new. The hypersexualization of women in media, from TV to movies to games, is decades-old ongoing issue. However, it is especially the problem in video games, as estimated about 61% of those working in the gaming industry are male. Additionally, although it has been that women now make up half of the gaming community, which is something that they always keep talking about, that women make up half of the gaming industry, and they always pull up the stats about women making up half, but then when you look at the stats and you look deeper, you find out that most of the female gamers are casual gamers that play on mobile devices like Candy Crush or Fruit Ninja, Angry Birds, and things like that, opposed to the hardcore games. Now, I'm not saying that female gamers don't play those games, but when you start to compare male versus females of, you know, playing Gears of War, or maybe Resident Evil, or maybe Final Fantasy, and once again, I'm going to repeat myself because there's going to be somebody in the comment section that's going to open and yap their mouth and say, hey, that's not true, there's a lot. No, what I'm saying is, when you compare the demographics, there's more males that will sit down and actually play games like Halo, play games like Gears of War, play games like Street Fighter. That's just the honest truth about it. But they always pass the statistics and say that, hey, they make up half of the gaming space when they really don't at all. But let's move on. Hence, from Lara Croft to Bayonetta, women in video games have consistently been heavily sexualized to appeal to men. And guess what? Lara Croft and Bayonetta are some of the most renowned, recognizable female characters in video game history and also pop culture history. Not one person don't know who these female characters are. And as I said before, there's more to them than their sexual image, because once you play these games, you get to know these characters. People fell in love with these characters way beyond how they look on the surface. There's a lot to Lara Croft. There's a lot to Bayonetta for you to actually like, and they have a lot of substance to them. But they always seem to forget that. They only hone in the physical aspect and then ignore everything else about that female character. They're the ones that's just labeling them and only propping them up for the sexual aspects and features for that character, and then don't even elaborate on why the male demographic love these characters besides how they look physically. So fortunately, in recent years, video games have done better at portraying women in a more balanced way. How? What balanced way? Because as I see it, female characters that have any form of beauty or sexiness to them censor or shame the demographic who wants to see that. And then you prop up characters like Mary Jane. You look at some of the female characters in Apex Legends and all these other crazy designs that they call balance, and they're going to tell you that this is how you're supposed to represent women, while excluding or shaming the attractive women. How does that work? How? Explain that to me. So, unfortunately, the presence of a few women in video games who aren't exactly what these men want to see has only resulted in escalating their creepiness. According to conservative men, not approaching the creation of every female character in video games in a way that appeals directly to them is woke, and some deeply disturbed men have taken to going to the public and rant about it. Recently, conservatives formulated a conspiracy theory that Sweet Baby Inc. was behind improving the treatment of women in video games and the inclusion of diverse characters, resulting in them boycotting the company. And this is the problem too. Now, here it is. You notice that they started to go into the political aspect where you start labeling anybody who has a different opinion or anybody who don't like the direction that the gaming industry is going. You label these gamers as conservative or conservative extremists, and don't even know. You don't even know any of their political affiliation. Not everybody that disagree with this are conservative. But yet, they paint them and stroke them with this generalization, which they claim they hate. They say they hate generalization, but they turn around and do the same exact thing. This is the hypocrisy that I'm talking about when it comes to game journalism. This is what I'm talking about. But I wanted to pretty much just stop right there and elaborate more, because I really want to talk about the hypocrisy of gaming journalism, how they cover video games when it comes to the female characters and also the male characters. So a couple days ago, or about a week ago, I had pretty much made a tweet, and this tweet had pretty much stirred up a lot of controversy, I would say, or had people just having debates about it. And this was focused around Stellar Blade, because as I said before, if you guys don't know, Shift Up, the company that created Stellar Blade, had essentially went on and accidentally leaked out the Stellar Blade demo by accident on the PlayStation Network, so people were able to get on and hurry up and download the demo right away. So people had a chance to actually play the game itself, and pretty much people gave their thoughts and opinions on it and really liked it. But then you start seeing screenshots, you start seeing video footage of her various outfits that she has, and also you see the jiggle physics that people started posting. And one of the most popular posts was her climbing up and down the ladder, so you actually see how the jiggle physics work. So I made a post talking about the jiggle physics, but I wanted to go in and elaborate even farther, and some people just missed the total context of this. So I'm going to read this to you, and then I'm going to talk about some of the controversy that surrounded it, and then the hypocrisy of gaming journalists when it comes to how they cover female representation and how they're depicted in games, and then how males are treated and depicted in games. So in the tweet, I said, I knew jiggle physics was in this game, but I didn't think it would be God tier. Some people need to understand why gamers are making a big deal about Eve and what she represents in gaming. She represents what gaming used to be in terms of character design and sex appeal. It has nothing to do with being horny. Video game characters are escape from reality, and this is what I was trying to pretty much paint the picture. See, when we have this discussion, when we talk about hot female characters or the sex appeal of a female character, the first thing people will say is that go jerk off to porn, and or you know, you guys are just horny and stuff. And I'm saying it's beyond just being horny. Y'all always take this conversation and boil it down to that when it's much bigger than that. Now, I'm not saying that there's nobody that's going in this game because they're horny and want to play because they want to get off to it. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that it goes beyond just that. It's not just boiled down to something as shallow as that, where there's more layers to this. But let's continue. Video games are an escape from reality. We play games. We play as characters who are much larger than life, but have flaws like us, so that we can relate to them. Both male and female characters in video games pre-2014 were designed to be at peak masculine and feminine forms. This is why men in video games have defined muscles, are leaders, people that men want to follow, and are handsome. The female characters are peak feminine with nice bodies, desirable personalities, and faces with which to fall in love with. And this is what I was pointing out here. And then you have some people out there that just boil it all down to sexism, that my view was being misogynistic and everything. And what I'm saying is, when you look at, perfect example, look at the Marvel comics, look at the DC comics, especially in the comic book industry, especially back in the day. Look at how both the male and female characters are designed. You look at the men, look at their abs, look at their face, look how chiseled they are. They're pretty much at peak masculinity, and look at their morals and their ethics. Then you look at the female characters, especially in Marvel and DC comics. They're at the hyper, or at the peak of femininity as far as their curves, and as far as their bust, and as far as their beauty is concerned. These people are much bigger than life. This is not reality. This is fantasy. People want to escape reality and go into these worlds and see characters that are much bigger and much larger than them. And that's the whole point of this genre, or this medium. And this is the same thing that you can say about video games. You see how these characters are portrayed, both men and women, and then somehow they turned this into a sexist thing. But let's continue. Now, imagine that post 2014, you have people like Anita, who knows nothing about the hobby, suddenly comes in and tells you that all of this is deep-rooted in misogyny. Now, with the backing of journalists writing hit pieces on the community, you are now told that you're sexist for enjoying a character like Eve. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with liking a character like Eve. And if you're horny for the character, so the fuck what? That's your business. And at the end of the day, these are not real people. These are just 3D rendered assets that these people are getting so upset about and getting offended over. But let's continue. We endured a decade of female characters becoming bastardized while the male characters remained unchanged. Now, Stellar Blade does something that gaming used to represent. Gamers celebrate and tourists don't understand why, when it was the norm. Stuff like this was never highlighted. Now it's being highlighted more than ever before because it was suppressed so long. And what I mean by highlighted is because, let's be honest here, when it comes to Stellar Blade, now, if Stellar Blade had came out pre-2014, Stellar Blade wouldn't get most of the attention that it's getting now. It wouldn't get most of the press that it's getting now because of how gaming was pre-2014. Stellar Blade will be just like any other action RPG game with a hot female protagonist. No one would bat an eye about it. No one would even highlight how sexy or how her design is, because back then those were typical designs. No one bitched about it, no one complained about it, and no one really pointed that out because it was the norm. And just like, let's go back to Digital Foundry, just like what he said.
I do think the character model was actually like very distracting in not a good way, because like with the camera angles chosen, it just felt like this game seems like a game that came out in like 002 in terms of its, like character design. 002 in terms of its, like character design. 002 in terms of its, like character design. It's 002 in terms of its, character design.
You notice how you mentioned the games in the early 2000s. Yes, because that was the norm. No one batted an eye about it. And the reason why why Eve is getting so much play and so much attention right now is because it's been suppressed this long. We went through a decade of constantly being ridiculed by the gaming press, calling you a misogynist, calling you a sexist, calling you a creep, calling you an incel, and then you censor the characters, especially when it's games that comes from the East and they come over to the United States. Then they censor them. Any form of sexuality they censor, and then you have the Western side where they just bastardize female characters in general. So you have a whole decade of that. So when Eve, a character that pops up like Eve, that goes against the grain, that actually is not afraid, add jiggle physics, add all those different type of things, of course people's going to make a big deal out of it. People's going to make a big deal. They're going to do that. But, so then we're not done yet, because right after I made that tweet and I talked about it, and all you guys give your thoughts and opinions, and many people had reined in on these tweets, you know, saying like, dude, you know, if you just want to jerk off to this game, just jerk off to it and everything like that. And this is the thing that really baffles my mind, because after I said all those things, this is the only thing that people had drawn their conclusion that I just want to jerk off to this. That, like, instead of just having a discussion to see what to hear what I'm saying and to see what I'm talking about, this is what it boils down to. And the point just flew right over their head. And as I said, and as I reiterate this, the main reason why people are wondering why everybody keep talking about Eve and not talking about the gameplay. Everybody just focus on Eve and how attractive the character is. But you got to understand how we got to this point. This would never have been a point of discussion if we didn't go through a whole entire decade of the constantly censoring the female characters, how they censor them. And then we can't forget how the West bastardized a lot of female characters. And then on top of that, you have to throw in the journalists that's constantly telling you how sexist, how misogynist, how homophobic you are when it comes to anything that revolves around gaming and females in general. And this is where the problem comes in. So now when you have a character like Eve who steps in, or shift up, that creates Stellar Blade, and you have a character like Eve who steps in, it takes it all the way back to where how games used to be, especially when it comes to the sex appeal aspect of video games, especially in the 90s all the way up to the early 2000s, which our boy from Digital Foundry had also acknowledged that what gaming was like back in the early 2000s when it comes to designs. So there's no denying that's how games was. And the thing is, if gaming had stayed the same, Stellar Blade would just probably be lost in the wind like any other action RPG. So if anybody wants to complain or should be at fault here or want to point the finger, should be the gaming journalists. It should be these people. You guys been attacking gamers for so long, and how the gaming landscape had changed so much. You created this situation. That's what you did. This game wouldn't have blown up as much as it did if it wasn't for any of you. And we're not even done yet. So after I made that tweet and everybody wanted to give their opinion and weigh in on it, I get a direct message from a couple of you guys saying, hey MugenLord, there's a Kotaku journalist that took a piece of your tweet and turned it into a whole political situation here. So I'm like, all right, let me go look into it. So when I go on Twitter, thanks to you guys, I found out that this journalist named Carolyn had essentially took a part of my tweet, not only didn't tag me into it, and didn't even put the full tweet up, and then took a piece of it and then turned it into to fit their political agenda. Now, who is Carolyn? Now, as I started looking through the comment sections, a lot of you guys was telling me that, yo, bro, this is Carolyn, the one of Anita Sarkeesian's right-hand soldiers during the whole feminist frequency story arc post-2014. And I was like, really? I said, I thought this person was gone. I was like, this person's still trying to gain relevancy and now trying to use my tweet to do that? So a lot of you guys pointed it out. And then when I looked in the comment sections of Carolyn's tweet, which I found really, really funny because he really dropped the ball on this. Because you see people in the comment sections, of course, saying that, hey, yo, you took MugenLord's tweet and didn't even tag him in it, or you only put a portion of his tweet. And this is what I'm talking about when it comes to gaming journalism. A lot of these gaming journalists are fucking dishonest because they took my tweet, took my post, and turned it into a political situation when I wasn't even trying to do that. And the problem is, these are the same journalists who are trying to tell you that Sweet Baby Inc. is the victim in this entire situation of Gamergate 2.0. These are the same journalists that's doing this. So if you can't trust them and they can't even be honest with you, how do you expect them to give the proper news or the proper lowdown or history of what's going on with this current situation with Sweet Baby Inc. when they doing shit like this? I'm a nobody. I'm a nobody on Twitter. I'm a nobody on YouTube. And they took my tweet to try to shape their narrative. And I appreciate you guys pointing it out and calling this person out for their hypocrisy. And then on top of that, they took my tweet, and after they got called out for it, then they reposted and posted the whole tweet. The damage is already done already. You got caught. You got caught being dishonest. You got caught trying to take my tweet and make it and turn it into a political situation to further enhance and further push whatever fucking agenda that you have. And you got called out on it. And I love it. And I appreciate you guys for doing that. But we're not done yet. I want to just talk about the hypocrisy in all of this and how they cover male characters and female characters in general when it comes to these journalists. Because you look at the Mary Sue talks about how men are creepy and how they're going about, you know, talking about Eve, the main protagonist. But then we can pull up many articles or tweets or whatever you want to call it of how they pretty much talk about female characters and male characters, and you will find the hypocrisy. I'll give you a perfect example. There's this one journalist who pretty much was talking about Ghost of Tsushima. And it was from Vice. This is during the time Ghost of Tsushima was pretty much released. And you look at this. Look at the hypocrisy of this. Waypoint, games by Vice. Now look at the headline. Let me see the dick in Ghost of Tsushima. And this whole article talks about, and the one I really wanted, so we won't sit down here all day talking about this. This journalist in this part right here mentions there are dozens of hot springs in the game, and they all end up with the same animation. Sakai gets out of the water. We see his ass again. He begins to turn to the right towards the camera. For a split second, all that's blocking a clear view of full frontal nudity is his right thigh, very erotic. As he continues to turn right milliseconds before he faced the camera at an angle that would show dick, the camera cuts to black. When it comes back, Sakai is fully dressed and his maximum health bar is slightly larger. It's a real tease. And this is what I'm talking about. As we continue, this is not even the only time where we've been robbed of a video game penis this month. Last week, Death Stranding, Kojima's uncanny game about Norman Reedus being a futuristic Amazon delivery guy, came out on PC. If you've played it, you know that piss is an important commodity in the early game, and that the player can choose to make Reedus pee on command. On console, this animation was always framed from the back, keeping it PG. On PC, with players being able to hack and move the camera around, we got to finally see Kojima's production didn't render a penis for Reedus. When you turn the camera around, his peeping out of a ghost dick. And this is what I'm talking about. And here's the tweet. The tweet comes from Lance themselves that talk about this. I'm very sorry to report that when Sam takes a piss in Death Stranding with camera hacks, there is no penis to discover. And then as you see in the comments, many people is disappointed that you couldn't see his penis. But this is journalists right here. Journalists are calling us pervs, calling us creeps, because we like beautiful women, attractive women, and then we comment on the jiggle physics of Eve. But you have journalists being disappointed and even break down the milliseconds of a camera that they're trying to get a glimpse of Sakai's penis. But it's okay. It's okay for these journalists to talk about this, right? It's okay for them. And then we're not done yet. There's another part in this article that says there's a long history of putting dicks in video games that goes all the way back to 1982's Custer's Revenge and its 3 pixel long piece. If you want a thorough in-depth about a game about dicks, you should definitely check out Robert Yang Dick Pic Simulator Cobra Club. So guess what? You see how hypocritical this is? If I was to comment or talk anything about a female character, I'm the creep. You guys, the straight male, are the creeps. They want to eliminate the male gaze. But we have a journalist right here that can talk about dicks and give you a long, extensive guide about dicks. But hold up, we're not done yet. The hypocrisy still continues on that I want to point out here. Then we have another article that someone had posted in the tweets. This one talks about the hypocrisy, how it represents Dead or Alive, and then the Resident Evil 2 mod. Now check this out. This person, Wesley Yin, says Resident Evil 2 mod strips Mr. X down to an umbrella thong. Here's a thong. Have you considered what Mr. X from Resident Evil 2 Remake looks like underneath the trench coat and hat? Wonder no more, there's a mod for that. But this mod right here, this is the best reason to replay I've seen yet. What next? I fully expect a mod that makes Mr. X completely naked. Imagine that coming around the corner. Now, you see the hypocrisy in this bullshit? Because if you was to put Jill in a maid outfit or give her bust, then you would see a completely different article about this. Bitching, complaining, sexualizing women, everything in the whole 9 yards. But this motherfucker right here is looking forward to seeing a naked Mr. X and seeing his dick and shit like that. And then also, this like a mod like this is a reason to replay it. But if I want to replay a game with a mod with Jill Valentine or Claire Redfield in a bikini, all of a sudden all hell breaks loose. And then look at this, the same journalist that talks about Dead or Alive 6 review. Naff and likely to embarrass. Better off dead. Dead or Alive 6 stumbled into 2019 like a drunken uncle staggers onto the dance floor at a wedding. Past it and likely to embarrass. Dead or Alive, the boob game, the kawaii cash grab, the Japanese fighter, more famous for its bouncing brush than its juggle combos. How has a new mainline Dead or Alive game come out in 2019? Dead or Alive Team Ninja, a developer that I thought had reinvented itself with the superb Neo, lose a bet with Koei Tecmo or something. However it happened, the result is a game that's best naff at worst grim. And this is the hypocrisy of this. You see how it's okay to sexualize male characters? It's okay to see a male and talk about his dicks and talk about why, or create mods so you could turn around to see his penis. You're allowed to sexualize. You're allowed to objectify a male character. But the moment you talk about how beautiful or how sexy and how curvy a female character, then all of a sudden it's a big fucking issue. But we still not done yet. I still got another one to show you guys. So this one comes from right here, the Call of Duty game. We have Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 skin sports some serious bulge. So there's a new operator skin available in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. It's for Darnell Hutchison, the techie operator that's built like a freight train. That's because he used to play college football. So they give you the whole thing about that. So that's when you go deeper into the article, you notice that they actually have a bulge imprint on the male character. And then the journalist would say, there's plenty to say about the over-sexualization of women in video games, which still is happening in all time. But it's far less common to see men become the object of attention. But if this is how we going to play out, I'm 100% for it. They're 100% for this. And give it glowing praise, glowing raves, and everything. And it's perfectly fine. And they're allowed to show a dick imprint on this character. But God forbid show nipples showing through a female character's shirt or anything like that. Hell would break loose. And this is why I keep saying, don't take these game journalists seriously. We can't take them serious at all, because they have this thing of rules for thee but not for me. It's wrong when we do it, or it's a problem, or it's sexist when we do it. But it's completely okay for you to objectify males in any standard that you want. But when it comes to female characters, it's, oh no, that's wrong, and everything is wrong with society because of the representation of women. This is hypocrisy 101 right here. You can't get any more hypocritical than this. And this is why we gotta keep calling this out. Because if we don't call this out, these people are going to constantly get away with this and constantly keep demonizing us. And they're going to entrench themselves and take over the industry if we don't do anything about it by pointing this stuff out. Because this is sheer hypocrisy. Sheer hypocrisy. There's nothing, like, it just baffles my mind. And to top all this off and finish this off, when I want to talk about the female character and how these journalists always talks about male gamers always boil down a female character down to her sexuality or her body image and her body proportion, when that's far from the truth. There's plenty of examples of beautiful female characters who are also strong. They're leaders and very, 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 very powerful, and many people love these characters. And the perfect example three characters I can give you from one franchise, and that's Final Fantasy VII. And we're going to talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake just for this one moment here. You have three female characters for a perfect example of what I talked about on my tweet, which is Tifa Lockhart, Aerith Gainsborough, and then we have Shinra's weapons specialist or weapons department specialist herself, Scarlet. These three different female characters, and they covered three different aspects of the spectrum with with what I talked about in the tweet. We have Tifa Lockhart. Yes, she's busty. Yes, she's beautiful. But this character, Tifa Lockhart, is one of my favorite female characters because not only that she has a pleasant personality, she's athletic, she's fit, and if you fuck around with her, she will beat your ass. She's a very capable character, and while at the same time very feminine, her femininity is not sacrificed at all. She's able to keep her beautiful looks, she's able to keep her beautiful body, while at the same time portraying strength, and she doesn't mind also being saved. She was saved by Cloud, but at the same time she's able to save Cloud herself. She's a strong female character, while at the same time very beautiful and sexy. There's nothing wrong with that. Two things can happen at the same time, but they always boil it down to the female character and how she looked, and they ignore every other aspect about that character. We go into Aerith. Aerith is the one also that I talked about, and when I talk about pleasant personality. She's sweet, she's kind, she's very dainty, playful. These are attributes that the feminine has.
And let us not forget that Aerith is also great with children. See, when the plate was about to fall on everybody on the lower plate, Aerith sacrificed or was willing to take that risk to make sure that Marlene was safe. And also the little girl who lost her father and couldn't find him. And then in the face of danger, she was able to calm that little child down and make sure that child was able to see her father once again. And these nurturing aspects is also found in the feminine. And that's the beautiful thing about the feminine, is for the simple fact is that the caring, especially for little children and animals, a woman is willing to put herself at risk in order to protect a little child's life when it's in danger. That's just a thing that's part of the feminine, and that's a very beautiful thing. And this thing is encompassed in Aerith herself and her character. And let us not forget, she's also responsible for saving the world from Meteor.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Female characters, or the feminine, is supposed to be the yin to a man's yang. We complement each other. That's what makes us strong when we unite as men and women or whatever. Women have traits that a man would never have. They possess things that men would never be able to possess. And men have traits that women would never be able to possess. But when you bring them all together, that's what makes them a powerful couple, or makes them a powerful team when you unite them together. And then you have Scarlet. Scarlet's another prominent character, or another thing I want to talk about. She's a perfect example of a boss bitch. See, any journalist would look at Scarlet and just bitch about how she's dressed and bitch about her cleavage and everything, but then ignore the fact is that she's the head of the weapons department. She's the head of the weapons department in Shinra. She's smart, she's very intelligent, and she knows everything about the weaponry within the company itself. And Shinra wouldn't be as powerful as far as their weapons are concerned if it wasn't for Scarlet. She's a very capable woman, and yes, she's sexy at the same fucking time. There's nothing wrong with that. But these game journalists will only take these female characters and just talk about their surface level with how they look physically. When us as the gamers, yes, we look at them, we look at their physical aspects, but we're the ones that actually played the game to actually get to know them on a personal level and know that there's more layer and depth to these female characters. So they talk about us boiling down a woman to their attributes, their physical attributes, but most of the journalists that always make these hit pieces only boils these female characters down to their attributes. Because when you look at any of these articles, when it talks about characters like Bayonetta or maybe Eve, they would never tell you the strong aspects of those characters. They only will harp on how men are gross and creepy and the sexualization of the character, while disregarding the attributes, the quality of these characters that men really like about them. And that's what irritates me, and that's what's so hypocritical about it. But you can't tell them nothing. So that's pretty much just my gist of all this. I just think it's very hypocritical of them to essentially just point out that men are creepy for pretty much showing appreciation to Eve, the female protagonist, when completely ignoring other aspects. And people will say that everybody's only talking about the character and not the game. There's plenty of people that's talking about the gameplay. I also mentioned it in my tweet too. I said it's awesome that Eve is hot, but I also want to know what the gameplay is like. If the gameplay is going to be good, and I hope the gameplay is good. And guess what? I pre-ordered the game. And if you guys know my channel, when I do my reviews, I don't hold back. Because despite Eve being hot, I'm still going to give my personal opinion. Because if the gameplay doesn't live up to snuff or standards, I'm going to talk about how ass the game is if the game happens to be bad. So that doesn't change. Just because Eve is hot, it doesn't change. But this is just one part of the war that gamers are just talking about. Can we just have a nice, attractive character without it being censored? And then we'll get to the next part if the game is good or not. But we want to have a discussion about that. And as I said before, people are talking about the game. It's just that you're just looking to complain, or you're looking for something to argue about and make something political about it. But that pretty much wraps this up. I definitely want to hear your thoughts in the comment sections below. What do you think about this hypocrisy and how gaming journalists cover, these games, especially when it comes to the depiction of female characters and the depiction of male characters? It just baffles my mind how these journalists are so hypocritical when it comes to this. So definitely want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. If you like the video, hit the like button, subscribe button for more gaming content here on this channel. This is MugenLord signing off. I'll see you game fiends later. Peace out.